Hi, I'm Susan Olson. I'm the historian for the Woodlawn Cemetery. Woodlawn is located in the Bronx. It is the final resting place of Joseph Pulitzer, Herman Melville, E.L. Doctorow, and the maestro, Duke Ellington. A couple years ago, I was researching our Halloween tour, and I came upon the unsolved murder of Orlando Dexter. My novel is a combination of fiction, nonfiction, and at the end, we find out who murdered him. It was a crisp September day in 1903. The trees in the Adirondacks burned with color. Orlando Dexter left his mountain retreat, driving into town to pick up his mail and run a few errands. When he tugged the leather straps to the left, turning the buggy onto the road, his horse raised up as the bullet struck its flank. A second shot pierced the air, and the curious bachelor tumbled to the ground, where his blood pooled in the dirt. Newspaper headlines announced the assassination of Henry Dexter's only son. The articles reported that he got what he deserved. We were in the Grand Hall of the Empire Historical Society, a place where visitors marveled at the way things were built 100 years ago. Dark walnut panels trimmed with gold lined the walls. The pink marble entry to the auditorium was carved to resemble a European palace. Embedded in the stone archway above us were the large bronze letters that read, "Dedicated to the memory of Orlando Dexter." When the large metal O hit the marble floor, the clanging sound echoed through the grand hall. A brief moment of silence was followed by footsteps, the rapid tap, tap, tap of hard shoes. I turned to face my new boss, Dr. Charles Rhinelander. What on earth is the problem here? He didn't wait for an answer to his questions. Hands on hips, he pushed out a deep sigh. "Hoffman Samuel's name needs to be in place this afternoon, Miss Forrest," he said to me. "Find a way to remove the old letters without damaging the place. We want our visitors to see the name of the man who gave the money to transform the museum. Understand?" I did. When a new donor steps up, the old donor goes away. No one in the world of cultural institutions contributed enough money to keep from being replaced by a shiny new patron who donated more. Our multi-million makeover was the dream of a successful hedge fund mogul, Hoffman Samuels III, who wanted more than publicity in the naming opportunity. The man was passionate about American history. Samuels believed a vibrant exhibit could make people turn off their phones. He wanted New Yorkers to stop texting and tweeting, to actually see something real and absorb more than 140 characters. We hoped he was right. I nodded to my boss. When the previous curator left to pursue other interests, I was given the opportunity to move to New York to complete the expansion of the museum. To me, it was one of those situations where the hand of God comes down from above and puts you where you belong. My boss offered a quick nod back and then turned and left. I lifted the fallen O off the marble floor and headed for the break room. Samuel's renovation dollars had not trickled down to the workplace. Our break room was centered among dozens of cubicles and closet-sized offices, a crappy little area with a dismal gray kitchenette, a small microwave, and a coffee pot old enough to be accessioned into the collections. Casey, our registrar, was taking a break from updating the inventory. She pulled one of the 8-inch letters from the crate. "It's really unfortunate they decided to remove his name." "Why? Do you have some sort of affection for Orlando?" I asked, as I poured a cup of coffee and plopped into a discarded office chair. Ben, our young preparator, a surfer boy with a master's degree in museum studies, talked through a mouthful of energy bar. "She thinks he's going to come back and haunt us." Casey pushed back her long gray hair and ran her fingers through her curls. Then she peered at me through her purple-rimmed glasses. Orlando's 90-year-old father was devastated. Henry Dexter paid for the construction of our society's headquarters as a tribute to his only son. He left a huge reward in his will to be paid out when someone finds the killer. "Really?" I set down my mug. "Did anyone ever claim the reward?" Casey leaned forward. "The murder remains unsolved to this day. Old man Dexter left the money in trust to the society, so we're responsible for paying the reward. It was $10,000 in 1910, so it's grown to be well over a few million." Ben wiped crumbs off his shirt and stood up. "Come on, girls. We can check out Orlando's portrait on the way back to the gallery." I followed my staff down the hall. For the next 30 minutes, I ignored donors, exhibits, and gala openings. I wanted to look at the painting that would never see daylight again. It was my duty as chief curator to care about the forgotten things stored in the basement of the Empire Historical Society, and it was my nature to take on a challenge. And then when I saw his face, I knew I was going to figure out who killed Miranda Dexter.
Hi, my name is Jonas Paterno. I was at one time the world's third worst waiter. I've sold adult videos from a telemarketing boiler room in the epicenter of porn in North Hollywood, California. I've done stand-up comedy in New York and LA. Now I'm a lawyer and I'm trying to write my way out of that. This is something I'm working on called the 3-Minute Lifetime. We were down in Biloxi at the Hillbilly Hilton. A couple of undercard fillers on the stumble bum circuit. Cruiserweights, 8 rounds. Both of us better fighters, shit, better people, when we fought light heavy back in the not so good old days. The two of us were friends, I guess you could say. And yeah, we danced before at the Felt Forum, back when we were Irish Jimmy Corrigan and Vic Romeo Valentine. Now the nicknames just sounded ridiculous, so we quit using them. Besides, the only thing that mattered to the mouth breathers down here in Mississippi was who to bet on, the puffy red-headed fella or the over-the-hill Italian, me. All things being equal, Jimmy Corrigan would have kicked my ass up and down the redneck Riviera. You see, Jimmy stuck to beer, while Red Blood has been running bourbon for at least 5-6 years now. The beer comes and the beer goes, but the hard stuff hangs on you, like the red silk robe Al Finelli draped over my shoulders before pushing me out of the locker room and down the hallway towards the ring. But all things weren't equal, not tonight. The plaster my wraps were soaked in was already hardening, and my knuckles were so close to the leather I could almost feel it. Finelli was a pretty square Joe, but when Dominic Costa tells you to cut 2 inches of foam out of the gloves, you cut 2 inches of foam out of the fucking gloves. I guess Big Dom didn't think the plaster alone would do the trick. He was never one to leave things to chance. The bell rang and Jimmy came right at me, hands low under his chin. 3 minutes might not seem like much, but let me tell you, they can feel like a lifetime. I threw a straight left that landed, opening a deep gash over Jimmy's right eye, blood flowing freely. The crowd roared. He blinked some of the blood away and brushed at the cut with the back of his glove, narrowing his good eye in a what the fuck expression that told me all I needed to know. That son of a bitch Costa had burned us both. I was sent out to KO Corrigan in the first, but clearly Corrigan was told the fight had to go the distance. The math didn't add up too good for the poor Irish bastard. He was in a much bigger twist with Costa than me, and I knew this because people aren't afraid to tell me things I probably shouldn't know. I wasn't screwing Costa's wife like Jimmy was. Not that I wouldn't if I had half a chance. I was just behind on my collections, way behind. A soft spot for too many customers is all. And it looked like my punishment was to take care of the Jimmy Corrigan situation. His feet were still moving pretty good. Jimmy's head never was that well connected to the rest of them, if you know what I mean, so no real surprise there. And he knew better than anybody that I had no Sunday punch. I was a tactician, a pretty boy with a solid jaw, a defensive fighter who'd outpoint you 7 times out of 10. Okay, 6 out of 10. Point is, I was nobody to fear. Definitely not the guy who'd have you taking the rest of your meals through a straw. But Jimmy never could hold his mud, and half of his face was bright red with it, from eyebrow to the point of his chin. He looked like an extra from that Braveheart picture with Mel Gibson that got left on the cutting room floor. 10 seconds in, and his right eye was done, useless. He came for a pillow fight and got hit with an anvil. A sideways glance at the ref told me he was all kinds of not interested. Costa had all 3 of us sewed up tight. You can't talk with the mouthpiece in, and even if I could, Jimmy would never hear me over the crowd. Nothing stirs up fight night like a good old bloodbath. He'd have to figure it out on his own. I didn't like his chances. I followed with a room service left, right, left to the breadbasket, you know, to let him clear the cobwebs. He backpedaled, which I had no time for. I went after him until he was on the ropes and telegraphed a right-hand bolo that he could duck in his sleep. The fucking thing started somewhere south of Tallahassee, for Christ's sakes. Figured I'd follow it with another straight left to the chin, put him on his ass with no further damage. Give him the chance to go down and stay down. As the bolo punch crossed the Florida border north and into Alabama, Jimmy's face went slack. I swear I could see our last garden tilt playing in black and white across his left eyeball. Both of us young and light on our feet. Next thing I know, he turns down and into my right hand. I catch him flush on his already gonzo eye, and I hear a sickening crack, my fist feeling his skull give way. He slumps back onto the ropes, still on his feet, and I swear to you it looked like I broke his face. His eye socket was pushed up into his forehead, the skin stretched to the breakpoint. Blood poured out of the faucet that was once an eyebrow. His left eye was still wide open, how I have no idea. But I knew I didn't want to see that old fight anymore. I couldn't even remember who won, and it didn't matter anyway. Doctors were still working on Jimmy as the ring announcer raised my arm in victory. Costa buttonholed me as soon as I jumped down from between the ropes, grabbing the side of my neck and pulling my ear down to hear him whisper, "Nice work, kid. Next stop, New Orleans." Not for Jimmy Corrigan, it wasn't. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Plast. I moved to New York earlier this year. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from Minneapolis. I'm going to read the first chapter from a novel. It's called The Circle, and it's about Jacob Fell. And he's a city boy, and he's forced into the wilds of the English countryside to find the man or the woman who murdered his sister, Penny. Jacob enters a world that's grotesque. Nothing is what it seems. Everyone has something to hide. It's a story of a brother and sister and the shame and the love and the guilt that holds them together. Penny Fell, without life but not yet bloated with death, cruised unseen along the river, milk white and naked as a seal, face down, her derelict eyes sweeping the riverbed, reeds bowing as she passed. The acutely calibrated ratio of body fat that had made Penny such a swimmer, built for the water, not the mirror, lifted her hips to the surface, as if invisible hands were helping her to wind with the River Tavy one last time, towards the stone bridge at Byford, towards the shallow dawn. Penny drifted, while Byford slept. The church clock showed 5 as Penny passed the jetty at the foot of Robin Sand's garden, past Robin's unloved timber dinghy with hand-painted sign, Robin Sand's River Services. Past Robin's emergency cigarettes, wrapped in cling film and stashed in a clump of hardrush. Around the next bend, had Penny been able to raise her head, she'd have seen the white tips of the converted barns at Tor Farm, where Cora Laycock slept in her wicker chair, her boys Pet and Saul sprawled upon their beds, adrift in alcoholic concussion. 200 metres downriver, Penny's foot snagged on a hook. The line had been positioned 5 hours earlier by a hopeful Joe Pyle. Joe had closed up the hogshead early and snuck down to the water with his poacher's line, seen by no one, except for Blue Stokes, Byford's handyman. And Blue had reasons of his own to step back into the shadow of the hogshead wood store until Joe was away down the path. 5 hours in the water, and no trout dangled at the end of Joe's line. But the hook did pinch a morsel of flesh from Penny's toe as she floated by. A mile back upriver, under the umbrella of a willow tree, 2 buntings paraded their tail feathers, flirting in the shadow of a pile of clothing that had been neatly squared away on a smooth rock. A crunch from the path sent both birds into the air. From the safety of a willow branch they watched, as small human hands plucked a pair of denim trousers from the foot of the pile. Girlish fingers and thumb kneaded the pockets. A man's wallet in the left, and this, in the right pocket, felt like a phone. The hands lifted one shoe and then the other, pausing to appreciate the weight of each. The heavier shoe tilted and 2 treasures fell into the heel, a lady's watch, hand-winding, delicate and antique perhaps, with a symbol like an octopus head below the 12, and a necklace. Cheap alloy chain, a pendant, a curl of silver, someone's failed attempt at a leaf, homemade perhaps, even better. The hand closed around the necklace. This would work, wouldn't it? Half a mile from the stone bridge, Penny passed the closed curtains of the hated new builds, a cul-de-sac of prefabs in white brick, all mean windows and low-browed roofs, described as hardly in keeping with the village by the parish council in its failed appeal. In the house at the neck of the cul-de-sac, Johnny Parks, local councillor, author of the planning application, midwife to the new builds, lay alone on his back in the dark, thinking jagged thoughts and listing all those people who'd wronged him the previous day. His list included Deborah, his wife. Deborah would be halfway to Waterhall now, in her stupid singlet and stupid shorts, pounding the ridge to quieten her endless anxieties, racing to beat the sun to the crest of Hale Tor. Like Johnny Parks, Carrie Cartwright couldn't sleep. In her narrow cottage on Byford High Street, Carrie stood at the end of the bed, watching her husband Sam as he snivelled into the pillow. "What is it, honey? What makes your dreams so sad?" Carrie knew. She thought she knew. She turned to the window and looked out at nothing. The stone bridge at Byford was beyond Carrie's sightline, so she didn't see Penny's shoulder crick when it hit the bridge abutment. Penny's handsome oval face made ugly as the current mashed her lips against cold green stone. Pinned to the abutment, twisted to a coil, Penny waited for the dog walker or postman or creeping philanderer who would find her and call for hands and hooks to haul her from the water. Between discovery and extraction, a small crowd would gather. Word is an airborne virus in Byford. One witness would claim that Penny looked peaceful at the end, brow resting on bicep, knees tucked to tummy like a sleeping child. Wishful thinking. In the thin autumn morning, Penny looked nothing but dead.
Hi, I'm Andrew Rakonda, and I was born and raised in the Bronx, and I'm in construction management. My first crime story was selected for the Best American Mystery Stories 2011, and I have another forthcoming in Crime Spree magazine. My novel in progress is a black comedy thriller that is set in the Bronx. Brian Rahill has fallen in love and has vowed to abandon his ethically dubious ways for Sheila. But old habits die hard, sometimes harder than people. So this is chapter 1 from the 3 people I had to kill last year. I see you're right-handed. I don't particularly trust right-handed people. Still hunched over his check ledger atop the glass display counter, Paver Nichols, the proprietor of Afterwards Boutique in Stonington, Connecticut, was in the middle of penning out the payable to when he stopped to consider my remark. The counter contained unpaid-for necklaces and earrings Sheila had made. Handcrafted stuff, beautiful stuff. Paver raised that big head of his from its wall of neck and looked at me with a sly but patronizing smile and said, 90% of the world's population is right-handed. And your point is? Never you mind, never you mind. So, Mr. Rehill, he said, do you get 10% as with your typical collection agency, even though she's your girlfriend? Date, I said. Scusi, he said. Sorry. I wasn't asking you for one. You're just so not my type. I was indicating that you need to date the check. I tapped on the check with my pinky, my left one. No need for the testes, he said. I'm giving you the payment due, am I not? It seemed like that was the path we were on, Mr. Nichols. Oh, please call me Paver. I nodded and said, not a chance. I noticed the pen he was using was a Uniball Streamline 1.0, my favorite pen. A box costs about $32 at Staples. That's about $2.60 a pen, but they write so smoothly, the ink just flows. Perhaps you're right, he said with a smile. Familiarity breeds contempt in children. My parents had a sense of whimsy. It was a little hard on me in school. You ever think about that? how a parent can make a decision to make the life of the child he or she has just created even more arduous by the simple act of naming that child. Moon Unit, Dweezil, that neo-Nazi who named his kid Adolf Hitler. He shook his big head. I know a woman in this very town who named her daughter Dakota. Not so bad on the face of it. Place names have been big for years now, and it's certainly not like naming her Bushwick. But the thing of it is, their surname is North. The Uniball Streamline 1.0 was also great for jabbing in a person's eye. It really, really held up well to that kind of task. Unfortunately, this little extortion foray wasn't about me and my needs. This was an unsolicited favor on Sheila's behalf, so I was keeping myself in check, deep check, which is usually the best policy. I noticed Paper was staring. I'm sorry, are you waiting for me to respond to the naming of names bit? I'm a bit chit-chat challenged. Some say silence is a virtue, he said. And Ben Franklin said that before them. And Francis Bacon said it's the virtue of fools. And some Chinese guy said a closed mouth catches no flies. Me, I said nothing. And when he saw that it was one of my virtues too, he leaned over his counter in slow-mo. It took nearly an hour. And finally gave way to a tiny snigger. 90%. You said that twice now, I said. I wonder if you'll go for the hat trick. He looked confused. It's a sports term, but I think you got it from the context. I felt my deep check system wasn't supplying enough coolant to the components. I closed my eyes for a few seconds. Check, check, check one, check, and then opened them. Oh, I thought you were taking a little nap there. Mr. Nichols, is it that you think I'm hard of hearing? Tell me, from the very bottom of your heart, do you think that the very first thing I ought to do after I leave your quaint establishment is go and get my hearing checked? He didn't look up from the check. No, I don't think that's the first thing you ought to get checked. And then he did. He looked up at me, unable to control himself. Thrice? I asked in wonder, but I should have known. He looked like he never stopped at seconds in his life. I'm just saying, 90% of the world's population, he sighed. He straightened up slowly, adipose yardage receding from his stressed glass countertop. Stressed, hell, it was frazzled profoundly. But never you mind, I wouldn't want to bother a man of your caliber with such esoterica. Fine. Let's have a discussion about calibers. Would you like that? I let him lose my eye, and he found the check again, and he signed his name. I guess we're not going to have a discussion about calibers, I said. Never me mind. He let loose with the smallest of sighs and gathered some small reserve of inner strength, and looked at me. There, I guess we're done now, he said. But instead of picking up the check and handing it to me, he flicked at its corner and it moved across the glass an inch my way. Pick the check up and hand it to me, I said. He blinked as if he didn't understand or didn't want to. Was I losing my mojo? Do actions speak louder than words? Is the pen actually mightier than the sword? I grasped his Streamline Uniball 1.0, removed the cap from its rear, capped the pen, then sailed it up and into his right nostril, lifting him to his tippy-tippy toes. Okay, 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 he whined, tears falling from his eyes. I let him down. I let go. He picked up the check, pen still in nose, and handed it to me. And then, only then, we were done. Man, the things we are forced to do for the women we adore.
I'm Norma Schofield, and my novel, Even the Streets Were Paved with Gold, is set in pre-Chavez Venezuela. In 1975, okay, everybody got pre-Chavez Venezuela? In 1975, when OPEC had just doubled the price of oil and Americans were sent lining up at the gas pump. I lived in Caracas for 10 years in the cosmopolitan world of ambassadors, oil aficionados, and CIA agents. And while there as an expat, I lived as a wife, a journalist, and a university professor. In the novel, just after New Year's Day 1975, an American girl goes to Venezuela to marry her Venezuelan fiance. Along the way, she meets an Englishman who's come on a 2-year contract to set up a factory, and an illegal alien girl who's come across the Andes from Colombia seeking a better life. On that same day, a building in an upscale neighborhood collapses and 2 bodies are found underneath. I'm reading from chapter 4. The boss opened the trunk of his car and said, "Help me take them into the factory." Winston had never seen a dead body up close. His knees went wobbly, but he steadied himself holding onto the car. He looked at the boss, but said nothing. Together, they picked up the body of a man. He was well built, lifeless, and dead weight. Try as they might, they couldn't stop the body from making a loud thwomp as it landed on the cold, drab concrete floor. Winston took a deep breath as he walked back outside. The rainforest hissed. Were there more insects than ever? Crickets were calling to each other. Cricket, cricket, cricket. Some said in 4-part harmony, while others just chirped. Were they watching? The woman's body was next, but it weighed less, and with care they were able to place her on the concrete without making a sound. "I'll be right back," said the boss softly as he headed toward the factory supply room. Winston leaned over. The man's dark hair was matted. The eyes were wide open, as was the mouth. He looked terrified, as if he'd seen a ghost. Winston looked for signs, a gunshot wound, blood, anything, but he saw nothing out of the ordinary. The woman looked peaceful. She was quite pretty. Short, curly blonde hair, dressed in a white frock, strangely inside out. She wore a crucifix encrusted with sparkling rubies and diamonds on a heavy gold chain around her neck. Her eyes were closed. For a minute, Winston thought maybe she was just asleep, but no, he shook his head. The boss brought back 2 large squares of heavy blue plastic, the blue of peacocks. The plastic fluttered like birds' wings as Winston and the boss spread them out on the unforgiving floor. With slow, measured steps, they carried the man's body to the edge of the plastic, tucked the plastic neatly over his head and feet, then rolled the body over and over until it was covered. Winston found tape on a shelf to secure it. "After this, you'll be able to go home and retire," the boss said. They picked up the woman. "Let's carry her to the middle," were the instructions. When they placed her on the sheet of blue, the boss motioned Winston to stand back. "I don't want to hurt her," he said. The boss went outside and came back with night bloom and jasmine. He placed some in her hair and some in her hands as he folded the hands across her chest and straightened the crucifix. He was on his knees as if in prayer. Then he kissed her on the lips. He folded the plastic over her body and underneath. Standing together, they tucked the plastic over her head and feet before gently rolling the body over until it was covered and taped. Winston helped the boss carry the bodies to the back of the company pickup. "Cover them tomorrow," the boss said. "Can you handle that?" Winston nodded. The back of the truck slid all the way down, and the machinery was already rigged up at the site in Caracas. He could maneuver the plastic-covered bodies one by one into the holes already dug, ready for the concrete to be poured. Yes, he could do it. The boss handed Winston a duffel bag full of American $1,000 bills. "When you've finished, go home and never look back. It's been an honor to have you as a friend." He patted Winston on the shoulder, turned one last time at the door, and was gone. Winston became stealth itself as he made his way silently to Caracas, cold, cautious, and efficient. He switched off the engine and lay back in his seat. High up in the hills of the neighborhood Altamira, luxury apartment buildings were going up, many of them still vacant. All the fun was down in the valley, and Winston could hear faintly the Mexican mariachi music so well loved in Venezuela, and see all the bright lights below. After about 5 minutes, he looked around. He saw no one. Winston walked over to the machinery. The 5-story apartment building would be built on 4 pillars, 2 tall pillars in front and 2 shorter ones in the back to account for the slope of the mountainside. Holes 7 feet in diameter had already been dug for the pillars, and the cylindrical tubing to form the pillars was in place. All that was needed now was the concrete, which would be poured in the morning. Winston took the bodies out of the pickup and placed them on the ground near the machinery. He hoisted them one by one to the top of the cylindrical casings. As the body of the man dropped down and disappeared, Winston made the sign of the cross. He covered it with a layer of earth and gravel, known in the trade as crushed stone. He looked around again. Still no one. He hoisted up the woman's body. As it disappeared into one of the rear casings, he said, "May God rest your soul." It was only 4 a.m. when he got back to the factory. Plenty of time before the crew arrived and for him to supervise the departure of the concrete mixers, leaving in convoy to make their way to Caracas. Later that day, Winston had packed his belongings into his only suitcase, bought a plane ticket, and had gone home to the West Indies. Even now, whenever he heard the chirping of crickets, he wondered if they knew and remembered.
Hi, I'm Piesa. Since I left the daily news business a few years ago, I've been writing novels. The first one was published in 2012, and I've discovered that I absolutely love making things up. After a second book on still another serious subject, I've gone rogue with zany mysteries. I had no intention of a series, but after I finished the first mystery, I liked the characters so much I couldn't leave them. So I've come back to Alison for help with the second. Tonight's reading from the first, which I finished here at CFA last year, is tentatively titled Paris Imperfect. It could be called, I suppose, 4 expats, a dog, and a 4.5-year-old. Sarah, a ditzy actress whose points of reference in life are old movies in the first book and Shakespearean quotes in the second, has just arrived to star in an English language production of the creepy play Don't Look Now. She is obsessed with Sarah Bernhardt, can't speak French, and doesn't know her way around. She ends up as babysitter for her precocious 4.5-year-old niece Miranda, who translates for and generally looks after her aunt. They all come afoul of an international art theft cartel when the kid refuses to let her original nanny pack her Bugs Bunny suitcase for a weekend trip to Prague. A $250,000 piece of ancient Egyptian art got shifted in the shuffle, and the thieves think the child has it or knows where it is. The nanny was in cahoots with the cabal and got killed for her mistake. A couple of other people get murdered along the way. This is from a scene between aunt and child. Sarah and Miranda hopped on the pink bike, parked across from the Bernhardt Bistro, and headed up the street where they could see the Hotel de Ville. Sarah felt certain she could find her way to the theater from here. Oops, this route took them right past the merry-go-round, and Miranda set up a howl again. Okay, Sarah said, one ride. Miranda demanded the galloping horse, which Sarah tried to point out only went up and down. But her niece not only insisted on the golden horse with the flying mane at the interior of the wheel, but also insisted that he galloped. Up you go, kiddo. Sarah wound her way back past a giraffe and a black Renault touring car and stepped to the ground as the calliope music began. She watched with amusement as her niece waved to her and yelled, "Giddy up," to the horse. Miranda was laughing and waving the first time the wheel came round. The second time around, she was kicking at a skinny slob in a blue check shirt who was trying to pull her from the horse. Sarah leaped on the wheel, this time bumping her way past a lion and a 2-seater airplane with a yellow steering wheel. screaming for help as she went. A number of tiny heads turned in her direction, but who was around to do something? A few mothers stood on the sidelines, smiling benevolently at the cleverness of their children, able to ride a lion or turn a steering wheel. Sarah reached Miranda and finally got a good look at the man she thought had followed her the night before. Hawk nose, blonde oily hair, he had a missing tooth and a grim look. Furious, actually. Because the horse was going up and down, he couldn't get a real purchase on Miranda. And she was doing a fairly good job to catch on each horse upward of kicking at his face with her little white sandals. Sarah began pounding him with her purse, and just as the horse moved downward and the guy was finally able to yank Miranda off, Sarah grabbed at him and got a handful of shirt, but he swung his arm violently and knocked her to the floor. She landed on her right elbow and an electric shock shot up her arm. She was dizzy with the fall and with the repetitive music and spinning wheel. She reached again, got her arms around one of his legs, and was dragged along as he tried to get off the wheel, holding Miranda like a bundle of laundry under his right arm, his hand over her mouth to stop her from screaming. "Bite the bastard," Sarah yelled. Frantically searching her mind for how to get help, Sarah began yelling over and over, "Au secours, au secours," startled to hear French words coming from her mouth. Endless hours of studying Truffaut and Godard film had paid off. As the man tried to step off the wheel, Sarah, bumping along the boards, holding his leg, the merry-go-round came to an abrupt stop. Scratched and skinned from the rough wood, Sarah peered through his legs and saw an army of mothers greeting him, arms folded across their chests. And suddenly he was assaulted by a fusillade of every manner of purse and shopping bag imaginable. A carrot flew by. As Sarah gingerly lifted up her bruised body, she had to duck a flailing Louis Vuitton satchel with a brown and beige Hermes scarf fluttering from the long shoulder strap. Miranda fell beside her. "Oh, baby, are you all right?" Sarah hugged her. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me look at you. Are you all right?" "Yes, but I'm getting tired of all these bad men coming after me."
Hi, I'm Corey Williams. In New York, I work in advertising photography. I'm from Rhode Island. I considered myself a writer pretty early. I remember 7th grade English class. I thought it was funny to make my friend laugh by writing dirty poems about other people in my class. I thought they were too good to throw away, so I just stuffed them in my desk until the teacher called me up to her desk, and she had them all out in front of her. And she said, "Did you write these?" And I said, "Yes, I did." She told me to go in the corner and think about the type of person I was becoming. And I recently had a cat pass away, so I tried to redeem myself by writing a poem about that, and ended up getting it published in a local paper. So these days, I'm finishing up working on a novel. I have a bunch of short stories and play published. But this is the beginning of a novella called Escape from Judy Hall. It's about a young man who finds himself in a bad situation, which only gets worse. This all started because the district attorney's daughter likes dudes who skateboard. So as usual, I'm riding, just with some guys I know, and somehow we end up in her family's gated community. We're showing off for her and her friends, the other guy's trying to pretend like they can skate. All it takes is a kickflip onto a fountain and dismount into a nose manual. She's only got eyes for me. Normally, I'm a pretty quiet dude. I don't try to get into trouble. She is undeniable. I'm hooked immediately. Light hair, tan skin, big eyes, and so confident. I thought it was just because she's pretty, so she invited us over to go in her pool. She's rich. Like her family owns buildings bigger than my high school, kind of rich. So we all act goofy, dropping cannonballs and splashing each other. I'm showing off by doing flips from her diving board. Then she swims over and kind of backs me into the corner. I'm fearless when I'm doing something like skating or sports, but this girl is so damn cute, I can barely speak. My mother would never let my sister wear the bathing suit she's wearing. My mom was Catholic and super conservative, no showing off, no inappropriate talk. She smiles and asks if I can show her how to float on her back. I'm getting ready to do it myself when she just swings her legs up in the water and pushes her chest out. She's struggling to keep her head out of the water. Hold me, she says. I snake my arm under her lower back, real careful not to be too friendly. But then she turns right into me and her tits hit me in the face. It was so good, man. I'm standing there like a nerdy tree, and then she giggles and tries it again. I just feast my eyes. My boys are at the other end of the pool laughing at me and trying to talk up to her friends, but I don't care about them. She gets it right finally, and then she gets super excited and swings her hair back. She puts her arms around my neck, looks me in the eye, and says, "Let's go into my house. I want to show you something." That's when it gets real. I'm in her beautiful home, past her kitchen, past her living room, into her father's office. Plaques on the wall, photos of dad, tall, business haircut, expensive suit, him with the governor, Yale law diploma. She leans against his desk. She leans against his desk and says she wants to see my dick. I stutter. I stare. She pulls the cups of her bikini to either side, and she's just out there, right in front of me, expectant. I hear her whirring. I ignore it. The Velcro on my shorts scrapes my legs as I push them down. They're wet and they stick to my thighs. I stay strong and don't have trouble with my unit. It's risen. She grins and it's on it. My life hits its peak, and I feel the wind of the world, the deafening of life's perfect moments, the awe of great pleasure. I remember this. It will be the last time I really know of it. But then that whirring sound again. I look up. I see a camera. A car guns up a road. Tires screech outside. Heavy footsteps into the house, down the hallway. She's nervous, off of me fast, trying to cover herself. A big man comes into the room, bald with rashy red freckled skin, a job to do. She recognizes him. "Travis, what are you doing?" I'm standing there naked. He doesn't even look at me, he just swings, a hard cuff over my right ear. I lose my balance, unaware that anyone could be that strong. She's yelling, he's on me, handcuffing me. I don't even fight it. He finally speaks. "Your dad's orders. Don't look at me like that, Phoebe, you knew better." Then he picks me up and grabs my clothes, hustling me, completely naked, out to his car. He throws me in the back seat. The doors lock. It's an undercover cop car, and the beginning of my confinement. He leaves me in there and charges into the backyard. I hope my boys got the warning in time. He comes back angry and alone, so I assume they did. He goes into the house. When he comes out the front door, Phoebe is right behind him, yelling, swearing. He doesn't even react, just gets in the car and backs out of the driveway. I still remember her standing there, beautiful and angry. He picks up the phone and makes a call. "Sir, I got him. The property's secure." I can make out the voice on the other end. "Get that trash booked. I'll call you." I sit in the back of the car and struggle into my clothes. I picture Phoebe in the pool, smiling at me, and that's the last time I felt like the world was on my side.
Thank you all, and thank the readers. They're great, right? So their novels will be soon, we hope. Some of them are finished. You can come get a drink and corner them and say, when is that book coming out? Thank you very much for being here, and congratulations to all of you. You were great. Thanks.